Hello, everyone. Alex Trujillo from FlightScope here again. And this week, we're going to talk a little bit about FlightScope on tour. I got my very good friend and co-worker with me, John Mazzanoble. John, how you doing, bud?
Very good, Alex. Great to be on with you.
Awesome, man. So for those of you that don't know, John helps me represent FlightScope on the PGA Tour, LPGA, Corn Ferry, all the tours pretty much. So he's been a lot of help. What I want to do is I want to give you guys a little background on how I got to the tour with FlightScope, and then how John or Johnny, like we like to call him, became a part of the team. So real quick, I was this is kind of it's very interesting how this whole story works. So I was born and raised in Miami, Florida, and when I graduated high school, I went into the service. I went into the U.S. Army. I served 10 years. I did one combat tour in Iraq, and when I was done with all of that, I didn't really know what my career path would be. So I moved back to Miami. I started caddying at Doral. This is before. This is when it was still the WGC, and I said, you know what? I think I want to maybe pursue a career in golf. So I moved up to Orlando, and I started going to a school called Professional Golfers Career College. Now, at that college, I had a teacher whose name was Sean Webb, and at the time, he was coaching or teaching our CEO and founder, Henry Johnson. So Henry asked Sean one day, "Hey, man, can you get us a couple interns?" So I was selected as one of the interns. There was 4 of us. I got the job at FlightScope as an intern, and here we go. So fast forward a little bit, and I remember that it was PGA Show. This might be PGA Show 2014, and I was sitting with one of our clients whose name is Mike Shy, and most of you know that's Bryson DeChambeau's coach. And Mike is telling me that, he's got this kid that, is really good, and he thinks, this kid's got it. So, for those of you who have been in golf for a while, you've maybe heard that a few times from different people, just as kind of players are coming up through the ranks. Well, nonetheless, shortly after that, Bryson wins the NCAAs, he wins the USAM, and boom, now he's on tour. So here we go, right? So once Bryson gets up to the tour, I remember Mike calls me and says, "Hey, man, Bryson is going to be playing at the Arnold Palmer, and I would like for you to come out and work with him and look at his numbers and help him in any way you can." I said, "Yeah, man, sure, I'd love to." So I go out to Bay Hill, meet Bryson. We're on the range. I get put through an interrogation about how much I know and ball flight and all these things, and then we go off to the course. So this is way back when. A lot of people are doing it now, but we were actually the first ones to actually go on the course with the players and actually track all of their shots. It was actually Mike Shy's idea. He said, "Hey, why don't we take the unit out? You can set it up on every shot, and we'll actually have on-course data during the practice rounds." So we're out there walking, and John is walking with the group. Now, I didn't really know what John's kind of position was or what he had to do within the team, but come to find out, John is actually the owner of Jumbo Max, which is the grips that Bryson uses. So now everything starts to kind of tie in. So I'll never forget, we were walking down the 13th at Bay Hill, and we were talking football. And I'm a Miami Dolphins fan, have been all my life. I was born and raised in Miami. And I think somebody or John says, "Yeah, I'm the Finhead." And I was like, "What do you mean you're the Finhead?" So the Finhead, for those of you who don't know, is the mascot for the Miami Dolphins. There it is. So he's like, "Yeah, I'm the Finhead." I'm like, "Well, that's weird. I mean, I've been watching this guy my whole youth growing up in the stadium, blowing a conch and running up and down." And so it was just interesting how, we kind of already knew who he was, but I didn't really know who he was. So anyways, we fast forward a few years, and I needed some help on tour, and I decided to get Johnny on board, and he's been extremely helpful and really helped us push the brand on the tour. So with that, John, I'm going to let you take over, do your introduction, and then we'll go from there.
Great, Alex. Thanks. Yeah, similar story. It's funny because, we were introduced to Mike Schy back in 2015, I think. And it was a show where I first met Henry Johnson. Our booth was right next to Henry's. And it was fascinating because Henry was really intrigued, with our golf grip, and I was intrigued with FlightScope. So, we hit it off right away and talked about doing some testing. And, next day we had a demo day in Vegas. It was our very first event. And Mike Schy was there. He's probably the first gentleman that walked up to our tent. And he said, I've always been intrigued with, bigger grips. And, come to find out, he was also a FlightScope guy. So there was an immediate tie-in and a synergy there. And Mike said, yeah, I've got this young kid similar to what he said to you. He's a pretty good player, kind of downplayed it a little bit, and I've always been intrigued with, big grips. So he got some grips. He went back to California, put some grips on some clubs. And I guess Bryson was intrigued by it, started hitting it. Come to find out, he shot a 58 and 259s the first 2 weeks he had the grips on. So that was the tie-in with Mike and Bryson. I became part of the team, as you have. And, if you know those guys, it's all one big family, a traveling family. And that's a lot of what we do is support for not only Bryson, but guys like Bubba and Pat Perez, a lot of the players out there. We're there in a support role, in a relationship role. So, it's been incredible. And the fact that there was already some synergy with you guys and us and Henry, I think really helped. And, so I was able to be part of that NCAA journey with Bryson. I was there for that. We spent the week with him, actually stayed with him for the U.S. Amateur. So, we have a great relationship, and it's kind of a back and forth relationship. We joke around a lot, but it's very serious on the course, and there's some good stories I'm sure we'll get into about Bryson and some of the other players on course and some of the things that we do.
Yeah, the other funny thing too is that John and I also have, through other, I guess, avenues, we actually know a lot of and play golf with a lot of the same people that are my friends now that I play golf with. But actually, John grew up with him. A good friend of mine, Larry Hildner, for example, he was from the Northeast area. I believe Larry was police officer, worked for the Secret Service, worked for the FBI. And then fast forward 20 years now, I'm playing golf with him. And he's like, yeah, John Mazzanoble? I'm like, yeah, John actually works on tour with me. So it's kind of crazy, man, how small the golf world is. But anyways, just to give you guys a little insight. So what does a typical week on the PGA Tour look for me and John and FlightScope? So our goal on the tour is obviously to grow the brand awareness and to help our players, reach their potential or their goals of what they're trying to achieve, trying to win every week. For example, let's say that we would go out to the tour event this week. We would leave on a Monday. We fly into the event early, get to the event, and then we basically make sure we know everybody who's on site that we have playing with, using our product. And then we'll go from there. We'll go straight to the range. Players will typically text us, say, hey, we're here. We'd like to do some work. For example, like when I'm out there, let's say Bryson's playing, Bubba's playing, Scott Stallings, Pat Perez. We have, maybe 10 or 12 people playing in the field. We'll take turns. So, for example, I might go out in the morning and do 9 holes with Bubba. I go out, I'll track every single shot from tee to green. And then once I make the turn, then he might go out with Bryson and then track his shots. And then at the end of the day, we basically gather together. We look through the data for them. And, sometimes the caddies want to know something in specific, like, hey, how far did that 7-iron go on this hole? Or do you remember what the wind was doing? So we're basically just gathering information for these players and storing it and collecting it and then being able to give it back to them when they need it. So that's just kind of a glimpse of what we do. One thing that's been very, I would say, beneficial for us and also for the players and the caddies is the environmental optimizer, which I'm sure most of you watched Henry do that webinar, because players, they're changing they're going to different locations every week. So not only is the environment changing from day to day, but it's changing week to week. And that environmental optimizer, I know for me and John, has been a huge advantage, because we can literally go in and see, hey, this is what the ball was doing last week in these conditions. This is what we should expect for it to do this week. And then the player just has that much more information. So, Johnny, I don't know if you want to fill in some spots on that subject.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, one of the best experiences I've had out there was in California, working with Bryson. Henry was out that week at Riviera, and just to be around those two, brilliant individuals. These are two of the smartest people that I've ever been around. I mean, you're talking about rocket scientists here, and to hear how the environmental optimizer came together through those conversations, a lot of research. But to work with Bryson, to work with Henry, and to just be part of that information gathering, and then see it come to fruition. To have a dual flight pattern with two lines and telling you, here's what it would be under normalized conditions, but here's the differentiator. We're actually showing you actual and normalized, which, if you know the industry at all, people have been striving to be able to do that in one unit. FlightScope was able to capture that through a lot of fact gathering that day. And, I was able to be part of that. So that was really cool. We've been able to use that to help players on site during different conditions, sea level, and, you go to Mexico City, it's a totally different dynamic. And then, one thing that I've noticed, some of the players are able to practice at home for conditions that they may be going, like, say, to the British Open. They're able to plug in real-time weather conditions over in Scotland and be able to get an idea what their ball is going to do. So what a competitive advantage, we have with that. And, some of the swing analytics, Alex, very well, we've been able to really do with the speed acceleration profile, a lot of shaft analytics to be able to help players, on site during the event on a Monday and Tuesday. A lot of players will come and they'll tinker. Something may not just be right, and they'll want to look around, and we're able to help them a lot with FlightScope, because the information's there. Whereas some of the other launch monitors, they're not able to gather that kind of information. So whether it's fitting the players in the perfect shaft or helping them with current, environmental weather conditions, we're able to get a lot done during the week. And other players take notice of that.
Yeah, I have a story on that. I was at, I want to say it was Travelers last year, and I was working with Roberto Diaz. Actually, it was Roberto, who's a FlightScope guy, and then Carlos Ortiz was there too. They're good buds. And I remember Joe from LAGP, which is the shaft that Bryson's using now in all his irons and woods. He had just put something in for Roberto. Roberto's, he was trying to hits it very straight, but he's trying to get a little distance. And I remember that Roberto taps me on the shoulder. He's like, "Hey man, can you help me out? I wanna test the shafts." So I go over there and we put the shaft in, and he started hitting it. And I remember immediately when he hit the first shot, it was like 13 yards. He was like flying the other one, probably like, I think 278, and then it went like to maybe not quite 13. It was probably like 11. Then it went to like 289. And I was like, "Hey man, let me look at this acceleration profile, because maybe you are getting more distance, but maybe the profile is not linear and you're going to be hitting the ball everywhere." And then when I went to the profile, it was linear. It looked really stable. And right there on the spot, I was able to do two things. One, I helped the player because he was able to get, more distance, which is what he was looking for. And two, I helped the manufacturer because I was able to, basically show him that, hey, the shaft that you just gave this player is a good fit for him. So it gives confidence to both sides of the equation. So it was, that's what we do. We're out there to help, and it's not just our players. We'll help anyone. If they ask us for help, we'll help them with what they need. But that speed and acceleration profile out on tour is extremely beneficial. And it's one of the reasons why Bubba came on, onto Team FlightScope, because of that speed acceleration profile. So, I want to give a few little stories of. I think I lost John. There he is. A few little just fun stories on the tour. So I'm going to give you guys two. So I have one from Bubba and then one from Tiger. And so I'm at the Greenbrier. This is last year. First time I've been to the Greenbrier. Beautiful place. And it was, I want to say it was Monday. And Bryson's tinkering. I went on the course. I did 18 holes with him. Then we went to the range. It was a full day. I got there at probably 10 o'clock in the morning. I was out there till 6. And I literally pull into my hotel and I get a call. It's Bubba. And he's like, hey, man, I need you to come to the range. I got some issues. I really need your help. I was like, all right, no problem, man. Get back in the car and here we go. And he's like, just bring some shorts. And I was like, okay. It sounded kind of weird. I mean, why would I wear we're not allowed, manufacturers are not allowed to wear shorts on the tour. Okay, so I bring some shorts and he sends me this address and it's nowhere near the range. So I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So I get to this pin that he sends me and I see Bubba and Teddy and they got all these rods out and they're on a stream. And I'm like, okay. So I get off and I'm like, all right, what are we doing? He's like, oh, no, we're going fly fishing. I was like, okay, well, thank you, sir. So, yeah, he was just being Bubba. Bubba's super nice. So we went fly fishing in the stream. Obviously, I smoked them in the fishing competition. But anyways, it was just a cool story, Bubba just being a nice guy like he is. So then my other story is with Tiger. So, I mean, I have a lot of stories, but this one's pretty cool. So we're at TPC Sawgrass. This is maybe 2 years ago. And I think we're on 11. And me and John are out there. I'm tracking every shot with Bryson. And I think Johnny's talking football with Tiger. They're talking about the Raiders or something. I remember that clearly. Yeah. And Joe is in there, LaCava. He's talking about his Giants. And I remember Tiger walks up to me. We were approaching the green, and he's like, let me ask you a question. He's like, is it like working for NASA, working for Bryson? And I was like, well, I don't know what it's like working for NASA, but I do know what it's like working for Bryson. And it's definitely you definitely gotta use your brain. So, just Tiger cracking jokes. That's what he does. He's a jokester. So it's been really fun. I mean, I think me and John have been fortunate enough to probably walk, I don't know, maybe a dozen practice rounds with Tiger and Bryson. They seem to get along really good. And it's been really cool to just watch Bryson kind of picking his brain, and also just watching Tiger, how he goes about his business on the course and how he hits certain shots. And it's just been pretty neat. So anyways, those are my stories. Johnny, you go ahead, man.
I got one pretty good one. I went over, Bryson asked me to go over early to Port Rush with him. We went out a week ahead of time. So if you know Bryson, he's the hardest working player out on tour. I don't think anybody is ever going to outwork Bryson. And people don't realize the amount of time and effort he puts into what he does. So, while other people might be going out and enjoying the local pubs and some of the fare, we were working, and it's a grind. So, it's a full day working with Bryson. And as well as I do, Alex, you're tired at the end of the day, mentally and physically, because there's a lot required. We're carrying, just for instance, carrying the backpack with the FlightScope and a few other things that we need, battery backups and things. You're probably carrying around 50 pounds on your back. And we're talking about, maybe 6 to 8 hours a day. So it's pretty trying. So we were out playing a practice round, and Tim had just got there. I had caddied for Bryson for a couple of days, got his numbers with FlightScope, and I was just really thankful to see Tim, because I was exhausted. My legs were sore, a lot of hills at Port Rush, and I was like, whew, man, I'm carrying that bag, carrying the FlightScope, and Bryson doesn't have any mercy. He expects you to get the job done. So I was really happy to see Tim. So long story short, out on Port Rush, and it's if you know anything about some of the courses in Ireland or Scotland, you walk out and there is no clubhouse at the turn. You're out at the farthest point. So we had gotten out at number 9. We made the turn. I think we played 10, maybe 11. Somewhere around 11, Tim realized that there wasn't any balls in the golf bag. Bryson had maybe 4 balls that he was practicing with. And when he went to hit a 5th shot, there was no ball. So Tim got this sheepish look on his face like, oh my God, we don't have golf balls. You don't want to run out of golf balls in a practice round with Bryson, trust me. The only thing that would be worse would be running out in a regular round. So Tim looks at me and goes, Maz, they call me Maz or Johnny out there. And said, Maz, I need you to do me a solid, man. We don't have balls. I said, what do you need, Tim? Anything. What do you guys need? We need you to go back. There's no golf carts. We need you to go back to the locker and grab some balls. Because, we still have 8 holes left, and he'd hit a couple into the gorse and lost a few. So we were down to like maybe 2-3 balls. And Bryson, on a given hole, may play 4 or 5 balls. So, but sure thing, Tim, I start jogging back, and I'm in pretty good shape, but we're talking about a pretty good hike back over hills and through valleys and gorse and everything else. There are no shortcuts. So you got to, draw a beeline. So I get back, I grab the balls, and I realize that if I go around the range, it's going to take me probably an extra 15, 20 minutes. So I go through the range and do a beeline, and I'm basically going up a slope like this in grass that's probably 3 feet tall. So I'm doing a military climb style up this hill, huffing and puffing, wondering if I'm going to make it up the hill. So thankfully, I made up the hill. I got the balls back. Tim was thankful. Bryson went about his business none the wiser. So it was quite an episode, and I slept very well that night.
Yeah. It's long days out there, man, for sure.
Yeah, you never know what's going to be required out there on a given day.
Yeah. So we have a question here in the question section. For those of you that want to ask a question, you're welcome to just go into the ask a question section and ask us the questions. If you guys want to come on with us, you're more than welcome to. Just let us know in the chat. So the question here is from Hendrik. It says, is the data on the course different than on the range? So, the one thing I can say from my side is that what we see is, one, the data from the actual range, they don't typically hit it as hard or swing it as fast. When we go into a practice round, they typically hit it a little bit harder or faster. And then on the course, when they're actually in tournament round, I think it's pretty significant. I know that for the guys that I work with closely, like Bubba and Bryson, their caddies do make an adjustment on that because they know that with adrenaline, they hit it further. So it's cool that we can see that. We have the range data and we have the on-course data. John, do you have anything else on that?
I think one unique thing about working on the course is that you have elevations and, different shots that you're required to hit. So that's a big reason why it's a competitive advantage to go out on the course, because you're able to dial in certain shots and slopes and, certain elevations, which have a tremendous effect on the distance.
Yeah, and I know with Bubba especially, people don't think that he's very technical, but actually the on-course stuff for him is really important because that's how him and Teddy prepare. And so what we'll do is, like, on a specific hole, we'll go, he'll hit his tee shot, and then if we're going to hit into a green, because the X3 tracks it all the way to it lands, as long as it's not, below the horizon of the unit, they use that. So he says, okay, I hit 7-iron, the pin's going to be in this location. I know I need to carry it this much to get over the front edge, or this is how much it is over the back. And they use it a lot. It's been, I think for Bubba especially, it's been very beneficial. So
it's almost like a dress rehearsal.
Pretty much. Exactly. Absolutely. And I know that I got a message from Bryson and from Bubba that, they're ready for us to come back out. I got the go ahead from the PGA Tour yesterday that me and Johnny are now able to go back. So I think John is scheduled to go. His first event is going to be WGC FedEx and in Memphis, and then we'll continue there. I'm going to be going to the Wyndham and the Tour Championship, and Johnny will be covering the rest of the events this year. So I'm really excited to get back out there with the boys and help them out as much as we can. So
yeah, it's funny because it's kind of the same group that travels from stop to stop. So you become a family in a way, and it's very much relationship based. The players count on their routine. They count on the data being there for them. So there's a void when we're not able to be there. And basically, that's we're the conduit, through that. So, I've heard from a few other players as well that they can't wait to have us back. So I'm excited to get back out there.
Yeah, me too. So does anyone have any other questions? Let me check the question section. John is so yeah, again, for those of you that if you are a Miami Dolphins fan, now you know Johnny is the Finhead. Here's another story. This is a good one. We were at Johnny, was that Shinnecock US Open?
Yeah.
Long Island, yes. Yeah. So when the US Open was in Shinnecock in Long Island,
I know where you're going.
we're staying with Bryson. Bryson rented a house in Long Island, and there's like, I don't know, 20 of us in this house. It's us, it's the Cobra people, the sick guys for the putter, Bryson, Mike, some of his friends, and it's one of the nights, I can't remember, it was maybe a Wednesday or Thursday night, and John has this conch shell that he blows in the stadium, and it's really, really loud. It sounds like a train. It actually sounds like a ship. And he blows that during the games, but this thing is extremely loud. Now we're in this nice neighborhood in Long Island. There it is. Yeah. And we're in this nice neighborhood in Long Island, and it's probably 8 or 9 o'clock. And Bryson wants to hear the conch shell. And when John blows this conch shell, I said, okay, we're going to jail because this thing is so loud. And people are probably sleeping, getting ready for work, and I bet you could hear this thing in Manhattan if there wasn't if there wasn't the amount of traffic that there was. I mean, this thing is loud. Don't blow it, Johnny. You're gonna blow everybody's ears out. But that was a funny story. So like that, we have.
Is we actually remember, Alex, we had a contest.
That's right. Yes, you're
Remember,
right.
We actually had the president of Cobra was blowing on the shell. Bryson took it, his mom, I think, was there, and everybody took a turn. It was a lot of fun. That's just the inside stuff that we're able to experience that maybe the viewers, aren't aware of that's happening during the week. But we do try to have some fun out there. I've been known to be a personal chef sometimes for Bryson and cook players. So again, it's a lot of it's relationships, and with the amazing technology of FlightScope, we feel like we're bringing a lot to the table to help the players prepare every week. A lot of them rely on us.
Yeah. We have a question from Joe that says, do players that use TrackMan come over on the range and ask to use FlightScope? What's the biggest conversion factor? So, Joe, that's a great question. I know from my experience, we have converted quite a few players. Sometimes it's not even about the conversion. Sometimes they just don't have their TrackMan and they need some numbers. So if we're on the range, they'll grab us. A lot of the times it does. The guys will come to us, especially the manufacturers, because they know we have the speed and acceleration profiles. They'll come to us and say, hey, can we get this guy on there and look at the profiles and the shafts? I mean, I know the KBS guys do that. Joe does that with LAGP. If we do get an at-bat with the players, we're not pushy. We're not there. We're actually not allowed to be there selling the unit per se. because the PGA Tour doesn't allow that. We're there to basically support the players. And so if they need our help, we help them. And then if we get in a bat with them, we basically just explain the differences and the benefits of FlightScope, and then we take it from there.
I think it's interesting, Alex. Let's talk real quick about when we first got out there and what the perceptions were. The reality of the tour is, out of sight, out of mind. And TrackMan had the range to themselves for years and years. I know when I was talking to Alex and Henry about going out there, when we developed this program, we knew it was going to be an uphill battle because although FlightScope is very well known in the PGA section, on tour, we were kind of a new character, even though we were the first original launch monitor out there before TrackMan. We had some ground to make up. So when we first got out there, we were working with Bryson, but and there were some other players that had units, but we had to build the reputation, and we've been able to do that over the last 3 years. From whether it's the branding of the hats and the shirts and things like that, more and more players are coming to us either to, to your point, look at the speed acceleration profiles, see what's going on with the weather or the optimizer that week, or just get numbers from us. And we're converting more and more players. I mean, every year we seem to just grow and grow with our presence and players, and we have a lot of great relationships. And I can't wait to get back out there, because when we left off, there were some exciting things going on with some of the players, some high profile players that had some interest in taking a look at the unit. So
I'm excited to get back out there.
More and more, you're going to see more and more players using FlightScope in the future for sure.
Awesome. Well, Johnny, listen, thank you for your time. I want to thank the viewers for their time. We wanted to basically just give you some insight on what we do on a weekly basis out on tour. Johnny, I'm very grateful for your help and for pushing the FlightScope brand on tour. You've done a great job, and I look forward to you continuing that along the way. We'll be out there shortly, man. I'm excited. So thanks again. Have a great day. See you guys.
Appreciate it. See you guys.